to The Witchy Web We Weave. I'm Alex.
I'm Alara.
And today we are doing a reaction video to something we both watched. She watched first, and I had been meaning to watch it, and then she finally was
I demanded that she watch.
And it was a little frightening, actually. I was like, damn, woman! So what we're going to be talking about is... What's the name of the series, though? It's Kondo.
It's Tidying Up by Marie Kondo.
On Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
She has a couple things on YouTube, not as extensively in depth as the Netflix stuff. So if you guys have Netflix, definitely a recommended watch.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not challenged in the cleaning department.
Okay, to be completely honest, I am not very good at keeping tidy. I am not very good at keeping things organized. Yes, I am a Virgo, but that is not part of it. Not for me.
That might have to do with your rising sign.
Maybe. It could also just be that my Virgo-ness translates more into either frugality or a desire for order, but not necessarily in the anxiety that comes with wanting order.
Oh, yeah. But
not necessarily the actual, lists and journals and, compartmentalized.
It's kind of like opposite OCD.
Yes.
Yeah, I've felt that sometimes where I'm just like, yeah, cleaning is great when I do it, but then I'm just like exhausted or overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Same, not the greatest, mostly because of the amount of stuff, honestly, because the stuff when I do have it, it's organized, it's on shelves and stuff.
And you are a collector.
Yeah.
That is your personality as a whole. You are very much a collector of different things. Anything cute, anything...
attractive.
Yeah, but
sparkly.
You also do, the pops, you have some figurines, you do a lot of books, which I completely understand the books. Mm-hmm. But just your nature in general is that of a collector, mixed with that of the nature of a magpie.
I like things.
You like things.
I like things. So I guess we're just going to dive in a little bit because there were moments where she had brought up that she was like, this sounds very witchy, metaphysical, kind of magical end, and I was still...
very spiritual.
Mm-hmm. And I was kind of wondering if part of that was because of feng shui and how in a lot of homes, especially in Asia, that they have a balance to their house. Things go in certain places. I don't know a lot about feng shui. We're not going to get a lot into that.
I hadn't thought about it from that end before, even though I had really enjoyed the show itself, and I love Marie. She's so cute and adorable. But it's just really interesting for me to actually watch something that clicked with a part of my brain. I was like, oh, this is totally something I can do. This is something that is actually kind of accessible, that I don't feel overwhelmed about. And this whole idea of everything has a place, or there's an order to everything, or everything should have its own place, it's something very much that my mom does. Which
my mom too.
That's just the way, if you go into her house is always pretty impeccably tidy, just because she's the kind of person that she always has a place for everything. Everything always has a designated spot. And then I come in like a whirlwind, and just by the end of it, she's just pulling her hair. I was like, my God, clean up after yourself.
Yeah, no, mom's definitely like that too. She's kind of scary though. Our house can't look lived in.
See, my mom, at least her house looks comfortably lived in.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there are little personal touches here and there, but
even my mom's personal touches are very artsy in a sense. It has to look good with how it already is.
Your house looks like a show house.
Yeah.
Or a if you look in a magazine of a house that has been put together for a stage showing.
Yeah.
That's how her house looks.
Yeah.
Unless you come up literally to your room,
to my space, and then
to your areas.
Wildness. Nah, it's really
Night
wild because my mom was like, I haven't been upstairs yet, but when I go upstairs, your upstairs better look like the downstairs. And I was like, ah.
That ain't never happening.
Yeah,
just by the amount of how much stuff that you have.
Well, not in here because this hasn't really. Anyway, but we digress. Our parents are kind of more organized than we are. And then, so again, don't know a lot about feng shui, and then I don't think it's exactly feng shui because she wasn't really talking about how things need to go by entrances or windows or mirrors, because I know there's a lot of feng shui is from what I know is a lot about flow, but there's still a rigidness to it that you need to follow a certain thing or it's not going to flow right. Basically,
it seems very much with Miss Kondo that the way that she does things is basically do it in a way that makes you feel lighter. It's all about comfort, but comfort in the idea that everything is designated, so it has a place, so you don't have to worry about it. So everything just kind of falls into order, all on its own. But it starts out, and one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this whole thing, watching her in the show itself, was her whole thing is based off the idea of sparking joy. So think about your favorite book, your favorite shirt, your most comfortable pair of jeans, you know, your favorite piece of art, you know, all of these different things, whatever it is that speaks to you, that makes you just like, like it's that feeling. And so once you find something that has that feeling for you, then you use it to go through the rest of like items to sort out what is truly meaningful and important to you, what you want to hold on to and keep, and what no longer has a place in your life. And this is one of the first, I think I'm getting ahead of myself, because I would really like to kind of rewind and kind of talk to you about when you watch the show. The first thing that she does is has you take her on a tour of your home and like show her all of your clutter, like air out all your dirty laundry, literally all your dirty laundry, all your cram spaces, all your little hidey holes. You tell her, you know, what's your problem areas, because for some people it's paper, for some people it's clothes, some people it's sentimental items. And she never makes you feel bad for wanting to keep something, and she never makes you feel bad for having clutter or having something that has gotten out of hand in the amount of stuff that you have. And then after, most of the time with the show, after she does the show, you know, where you give her the tour, this is my favorite part of the entire show, is she asks to greet the home. And this I thought was so freaking witchy, and I love it. And she basically will kind of wander around for a second until she finds a spot that for whatever reason works for her, and she sits down properly, you know, Japanese properly. Yeah, kneel on the floor, and she basically has a moment with the house where she just kind of communes with the house. And she never really talks about what she says or what she does as she's doing it, but I get the sense that it's very much she's greeting the house, she's asking it permission. You put it really well. That she was basically asking permission to come in and help them. Like, for the house to accept her energy as a means of getting them where they need to be. And then I liked, in some episodes, it was interesting, because in some episodes she had the couple or the family do it with her, and some she just kind of had them sitting to the side and kind of just doing it with her. But in other ones she was very specific. Hey, I think you should do it too. Like the very last episode, I'm just going to talk about that same whole scene. It was a brand new couple. They just got married, just bought the house. And she goes, you're so new to the house yourselves. Take a moment too. And it's also, what I thought was really extra witchy about it, which is why I thought she brought it up, was because it's all about intent. Yes. She literally tells this couple, like, hey, like, take a seat or kneel, however you're comfortable, and talk to your house, set your intent for it. So do you want it to be joyful? Do you want it to be loving? Do you want it to be, or both, or whatever, like, just whatever you want your house to bring you and you to bring to it every day, because that's where you live. That is your base. And she does that with other people, and it can be different types of intent, like you said. Like with one couple, they were transitioning from kind of a dorm, like young adult, to a more mature adult, and that's what they were wanting to bring with this new change up. And so that whole episode for them was about setting that intent and going through their things with that intent of, I am now transitioning to a new phase of my life. From this point forward, I want to leave some of my childhood character, college stuff especially, behind, to be able to step forward as an adult and live my life the way that I want to as an adult. And that was very, like, that part kind of really spoke to me, because that's kind of where I'm starting to be phase-wise in my life as I'm starting to try to leave behind some of that more young adult mentality, and I'm trying to step forward into more of an actual proper mature adulthood. But everyone does it in different ways, and it has different meanings for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. Intent is very important with the show, and is one of the reasons why I thought this is hella witchy, is because just about she has it broken down into categories, like it's clothes, books, papers, miscellaneous, and then sentimental.
Mm-hmm.
But for everything that you go through, she wants you to go through with some kind of intention behind it of what you are wanting to help you sort through what to keep and what to let go of. And the thing that really spoke to me, especially with clothing, was that when you had to take all of your clothes,
all of them out,
every single piece of every sock, every piece of underwear, every pant, every shirt.
Mm-hmm. Throw out of the closets, out of the drawers,
into a huge pile, so you could really see
how much you had.
And then you had to go through and each item, hold it in your hands, ask, does it spark joy? Does it have, does it lend itself to the intention that I'm trying to put into my life? And depending on yes or no, you always thank it,
mm-hmm.
and you either keep it, or if not, you thank it for its service, for what it's done for you. You show gratitude to your clothes. And then you say goodbye. Mm-hmm. And you put it down very gently, with love and care. And I thought, I think oftentimes in our lives, we really don't think a lot about our clothes in that sense. They're just, ways to adorn ourselves, ways mm-hmm. to show our individualities, ways of expression. I don't think we really think about the fact that our clothes do a lot for us. They help us a lot. There's a big connection that gets formed between you and your clothes because,
you're wearing it.
You're wearing
it's
it,
on your body.
And it's one of the ways that you show yourself who you are. It's one of the main ways of you showing your individuality as a person. So I think our clothes soak up a lot of our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do form attachments. That's why I have shirts that I've had for 12, 14 years.
Mm-hmm. Same. No, I was thinking about that too, just because there were some people in some shows, in some of the episodes, that weren't sentimentally attached to clothing. They had other things, like some of the people had the opposite problem, where they didn't really know what to keep or what to get rid of because it was all utilitarian? Yeah, it was... it's all I have a job, I have, kids, I need to have stuff to go to the park or whatever. It was a lot of just, I have clothes because I need them, basically. And they're okay,
because they serve a purpose.
Yeah, so they were how do I get rid of something if it's all basically just because I need to have clothing in my closet?
Then you need to look at it from a more strategic point. Mm-hmm. If it's not a point of joy, if this is a particular type of thing that doesn't spark joy for you, you're not really attached to your clothes.
Mm-hmm. I have specific shirts and stuff, but not as a whole. No.
Yeah. So for you, it would be going through and thinking, do I like wearing this? Does this feel comfortable? Does it fit me?
Mm-hmm.
Does it promote the image that I want for myself in this part of my life? Mm-hmm. So you would be asking those questions. For me, I have a little bit more attachment to my clothes, especially my shirts, because I really, if y'all have been paying attention to this show, almost every single time I have worn some different shirt. But I really enjoy wearing graphic tees and wearing shirts that promote things that I either am passionate about or things that I really love. That's why you'll see me wearing supernatural shirts, firefly shirts, you'll see me wearing science-based, science shirts, mental health shirts, things like that, because these are all things that I really love and am passionate about. So for me, going through my clothes was a little bit more interesting, because I'll go ahead and be honest with y'all, I watched this show all the way through, and by about the third episode, I was hooked enough that same day, I went through and I made the giant clothes mountain, and I started actually going through my clothes, and I ended up getting rid of 2 or 3 trash bags of clothes that ended up getting sorted through and donated. because they just no longer served me. And it was time for me to let them go. And up until then, I hadn't been able to. And I really liked one of the things that Marie had said of a lot of people can't get rid of certain items, especially clothes, because they've had them for so long that they feel like they don't have the right to get rid of them. Or if it still serves, if it's still useful, if it can still be used, if it's not falling apart at the seams, then they feel like they can't get rid of it because it can still be used.
Mm-hmm.
And so by giving gratitude and saying thank you, but I'm sorry, it's time to let go, giving that gratitude and that thanking it kind of relieves you of some of the guilt of parting with it. And you can actually, from that point, kind of look at it more of, thank you, you served your purpose for me, but now you get to get donated and sent to someone else who does need you and can use you. Because in a lot of the shows, a lot of what ends up not serving is put into trash bags and picked up by a donation service.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these items, even though they're not being used by this family anymore, they still get to serve a purpose. Someone still gets to use them, which is something that had always bothered me growing up. Just to give y'all some background, like I said, I grew up in the country, but my great-grandmother, my great-grandparents, they survived the Great Depression in rural Arkansas. They were cotton farmers. Like, they were sharecroppers, basically. So they were extremely poor, and they were reliant on the owners of the cotton crops to live. Like, they weren't even working their own land. They were working somebody else's. So when the Great Depression went through, it hit them really hard. And for the rest of her life, my great-grandmother was a hoarder. She hoarded everything, anything and everything that still had use, that still could be repurposed, anything and everything that could do something. She held on to it whether or not she had a need for it. And that kind of got passed on to my grandmother. My mom still has a lot of those tendencies. Anytime she empties out something, she still will ask me, can you reuse this? This is something that, I don't want to throw it out if it can be used for something. And I've grown up with a lot of those tendencies now too. I do a lot of repurposing and things like that, and it has translated into my unwillingness to get rid of a lot of things because they still can be used for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people have that where they're unable to get rid of something because it can still be used. And I felt like that was something that it's always kind of bothered me. And it's something that the show really highlighted while I was watching it. Of just because you are done using something and it still has purpose or it still has use doesn't mean that you still have to hold on to it. You can donate it or give it to someone else who has a greater need or greater use for it. You don't have to hold on to something just because it's still practical.
Mm-hmm. True. I think, I was going to say, because you had said, like, I know my mom does it too with glass jars especially. Especially, like, bigger ones, like things that, like, tomato sauce or salsa comes in, like, so something a little more hefty in size. She keeps a lot of those. And I've been repurposing a couple of them for other witchy needs. Mm-hmm. But, I guess there's a point to, the whole reuse, recycle, thriftiness, and then a lot of this goes the other way on the extreme, where it's too much recycling in your own house. Like, you're not getting rid of it, you're not recycling it.
You're just hoarding it with the intent of it still has purpose, it can still be used, but
I might need it someday.
You might need it someday, but you never end up using it. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is one of the hardest things for people to let go of. And even me, I have a hard time with that. But after watching the show and kind of taking in some of the stuff, I was actually finally able to let go of some of that stuff that I'd been holding on for. I could reuse it for something someday. And I was finally able to send it to someone who could reuse it for something now. Mm-hmm. It stopped just sitting there collecting dust, taking up space, and just sending out things like that, in my mind, send out bad vibes. Because every time I look at it, it causes me anxiety because it's something that should be used, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's one of the big things why people start feeling so much better when they start actually
cleaning their space. You're cleaning your air.
The whole thing is cleaning the energy of the house, cleaning the energy of your things, you know, and kind of making amends to your items, to your material things, and to your house in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, these are all families or couples. Some have kids, some didn't. And all of them by the end were like, we're less stressed, we're less angry with each other, we communicate better.
I am more grateful for the things that I have.
Yeah. Like, an example was the family, the family that inherited the house from one of their parents.
Oh, yeah, the couple, the older couple, the
older
empty
couple.
nesters.
Them. He and his kids for 30 years had collected baseball cards. Remember, like, oodles.
Oh
like,
God.
I mean...
It could take up you know those big walk-in closets that everybody envies? It could have taken up one of those and still had room.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it would have overflowed.
It was just loads of cards. So he went through those, you know, and his wife was pretty surprised that he gave up so many. And he goes, I forget exactly how he said it, but he goes, if I have 10 cards, I'll appreciate those 10 more than the 100 I had. So he was talking about how, you know, and I could see where stuff like that would mean more than you just, if I just collected baseball cards versus collecting them with a family member or a parent or something. So I could see where, like, yeah, I mean, my kids did this, but maybe at that point, you know, pick your favorite players or your favorite team or something.
Yeah.
And then, I know baseball cards go for some money. So if you have something that's not necessarily something to donate, but something
but someone else
another
can
collector,
enjoy it. Yeah.
You know, another person that maybe, I don't know baseball teams, but like if you're an Angels fan and you want to keep your Angels teams, but maybe you also have like Dodgers or something, and you're like, the Dodgers can go. I'm sure some Dodgers fan somewhere is dying to have that set.
Yeah.
So, and that goes for anything else collectible too.
I think that was my biggest takeaway from the show is there was finally a way for me to let go of the negative energy from that particular mindset that I have inherited through 4 generations. So I'm a 4th generation. I've still got this thing that I'm dealing with. And I'm finally finding a way to make it okay. To actually make, you know, to cleanse some of that and find a way to work with it, but in a way that is not detrimental to me and my energy. And I found that to be really relieving.
I'm sure.
Like, that was almost cathartic. Because I felt like, in some ways, I was putting the spirit of my great-grandmother to rest. Because I still feel her quite often. And I'm very emotionally connected to my great-grandmother.
Kind of, I don't know if this is how you felt it, but like in my head, because I was thinking like, yeah, if my grandparents were in the same situation, we talked about that before. And I could almost sense like, you know, the whole putting to rest, it's almost like, thanks for your struggle, but I have enough.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing. There were so many different times during the show that I got emotional that I was really surprised.
I'm going to be honest. Finish your sentence, though, but I'm a little upset about this one thing.
Yeah. I know what you're going to talk about, but I felt really emotional during a lot of different parts of the show, and some of it is because of what you're about to talk about. But other parts of it was finally that I was able to see myself and the way that I live through different eyes, and I was actually able to start addressing some of those things that it was almost like a minor form of shadow work for me, because I felt like I was dealing with some shadows that I had just built up and inherited over the course of my life, but down the family tree, you know, down the line. And it was very surprising. I was not expecting to have an emotional reaction from someone.
The house cleaning.
The house cleaning. I actually enjoyed cleaning out my house.
Yeah, she called me. She was like all excited. She's like, I cleaned. I did all this stuff. And I was like, oh,
Are you
okay?
kidding me? I sorted through and organized all of my clothes. That was one of the biggest things that was taking up so much space for me. I got all of my clothes. I used her folding and organization system. I got it to all fit into a dresser about yay deep. And the only my closet went from a full walk-in closet, taken up completely, to the only items I had hanging fit in about this amount of space. And that was just my professional clothes and dresses that I could not fold for
wrinkle reasons.
Mm-hmm. And that, like, I told my mom about that, and you could practically see the smoke. because I could actually see my floor again. Like, I don't have any clothes on my floor anymore. It's all folded in my dresser. And that's never happened.
All put away.
All put away. On my own. Without anybody else folding it for me. Oh my god. My mom almost had a, like, she almost had a fainting spell.
A conniption.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to talk about that moment since we're... Because
Yeah,
I
go
also
ahead.
got emotional in other scenes, you know, about other stuff, and I think a lot of it was just, like, that whole couple struggle thing that got to me, too, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing, when we were talking about this earlier, when she greets your house, they play this music, man, and I don't know if they mess with frequencies or pitches or something, because there have been people that do that in movies to, like, in like... kind of cause other, like, mental reactions.
Music is so closely associated with our brain and how we associate emotion.
So, I don't know what it is, but I was telling her, I was like, I only for sure kind of tear up every time that music plays, because I was crocheting, and I would look over, she doesn't speak English the whole time, she will go into Japanese.
She has a translator.
She has a translator just for parts of it, but there are parts where it's just her and subtitles. So I would turn my head to really pay attention during those scenes, and then everything else was kind of corner of my eye. And I'd be going, and I'm like, oh, here comes the music. And, like, my eye would just kind of, like, I wouldn't full cry, but it would just kind of, like, when you're getting, like, a little stingy ass sensation, and I'm like...
Oh, I full on bald. I'm not...
You know,
no,
there's not even that many episodes. It's, like, what, 6 episodes? But
yeah,
every
6
episode, I'm like, and I texted her, I'm like, it's the music, man, because, like, I'm not even, like, what the heck? I was so, like, just, this is weird.
But it feels like such an intimate thing to watch her commune with the house. It feels like you are spying, almost, on a private conversation.
Yeah, no, looking back, actually, because every time something happens, I think of something in the past, right?
Yep. That's the way our brain works.
Yeah, I was now really thinking about it. I think I've been bounced around a lot my whole life. So that might have been part of my thing with the whole house thing. Is that I've never really been overly grounded in a space just because it always felt temporary to me because I had just moved so much as a kid.
And it doesn't help the way that your mom treats possessions, where she never really had any respect for your possessions.
Yeah, so I feel like that might have also just been something. I feel like that's why I hoard more than, like, your instance, your stuff was family. And yes, I do have family issues for sure on half my side of the family. Yeah. But I think a lot of that was, like, I'm finally an adult. This is my stuff. Don't touch it. Yeah. But yeah, I moved around so much, and that, you know, my mom was like, oh, well, like, you have other people that you know that have moved around, and they're not having this many issues, and I'm like, that's a totally different reaction, though. Like, you know, if I'd, you know, I wasn't really extroverted growing up, especially I'm more extroverted now than I was when I was younger, believe it or not. And so my mom's like, oh, you know, we're just moving or whatever. And I'm like, no, like, you're moving. I have to uproot my whole life. Like, it's hard for me to make friends. It's hard for me to join athletic stuff. It was hard for me to do extracurricular stuff in school, out of school, whatever, because I was just too nervous all the time to meet people. And I was like, every time you move me, I have no stability.
I completely understand, because I'm just as introverted as you are, and I had that really bad. I stayed in the same small ass town for most of my life, from the time before I could remember up until I was 13, and then I ended up going to 3 different high schools in 4 years.
Ooh, man.
And I went from knowing every single person in my grade, or if I didn't know you specifically, I knew you by your last name for who you're related to. I went from that to absolutely no one. So I understand a little bit of that, of moving and being so introverted that you basically you get sucked into the void where you don't have anybody. You don't have any connections to anyone at all anymore.
Yeah, there's this graph, I'm sure some people have seen it, because I've seen it on Facebook, and it's like, how introverts meet friends.
Yeah.
And it's basically like an extrovert adopts them. And that happened to me a lot.
I got adopted by extroverts.
Or I would just happen to have the other introverts in one of my classes, and I would look over and they'd be reading something nerdy or talking about something nerdy, and I would kind of inch over and be like, I like that too. Like, that was literally the most out there I'd get. I'd be like, oh, you like this one show? Me too. Like, that's literally how I made friends.
Case in point, what is it? Community college.
Oh yeah, where we met. Yeah, we were tossed together.
We were tossed together. We had to sit right next to each other during a history and humanities class, and the more that we ended up just.
But we really started talking because they made us do something. We had to go take something to the office
or something, and we got to talking, and we realized that we actually had.
We were nerds. We were
nerds.
Nerd.
We
fellow nerdery. Basically,
we bonded over
nerdiness. Yeah, pretty sure at the time it was either books or anime.
Probably
because nerds. But yeah, so and then outside of that, like you had more friends just because you'd been there longer and you were kind of, but you were friends with like that big old group of nerds.
Because I got adopted by an extrovert. I literally went into the food court
area, yeah, the lunch,
the cafeteria, and they had some big plushy chairs like right up against the
windows,
huge windows, prime reading area. Sat down, I was reading. I basically had a giant man that kind of reminded me of a panda come up to me. And he's like, you look like you could use some friends. Would you like some friends? Basically, that is almost exactly what he said to me. I was like, yeah, I would like some friends. Because huge introvert. He's like, well, okay, come on. And so I scooped up my stuff, and with these huge eyes of a deer in a headlight, he proceeded to introduce me to like 10 or 12 different people. He's like, this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and oh, you like them, and like, everybody, this is, come on, dear, give us your name. Basically matchmaking me with a group of friends. Like, this man was ridiculously outgoing. But like, that's the only reason I knew people at all.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is about me. I think I might come off as scary or something.
You have an amazing RBF.
That's not a good thing, though, and I don't mean to.
I know, but it's almost awe-inspiring how good that face is.
That, like, people, like, it was really crazy because people had to come up to me to say hi, but apparently I was frightening, and I was like, you know, like, what? Because, like, I would be reading books, no one would bother me. Like, no one would bother me.
Your reading face is rather intense.
I guess, but, like, I'd be laughing or whatever with my book. Like,
yeah, but when you're reading it, it actually sounds like an evil chuckle.
Thanks.
It's very sinister.
Oh, Jesus. Probably because I'm trying not to, like, out loud super laugh. Like, ha ha ha! Like, you know, whatever. I don't even know. That's not how I laugh. Sorry. Not even close to how I laugh. But, like, I'll just be like, like, I'll, because, like, I'll be, like, in a public space or on a bus or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to be sitting there just, like, busting out gut laughing, you know. But, you know, like, I don't know. Or, like, I'd wear, like, hella nerdy stuff in college, and, like, there's all these stories, like, oh, I met my friend by, like, wearing this, like, really crazy shirt or whatever, and, like, I actually met one of my friends in high school because she was wearing a shirt of something I really liked, and I was like, I love your shirt, and boom, we were friends. But, yeah, I was just like, am I that unapproachable? The most I got approached was when I was wearing that one hat. Remember?
Oh,
I had a hat. It's somewhere in my stuff. That my aunt bought me this hat, and this is gonna be a really long video because we're talking about all this other weird.
You know what? This
BS.
is just. This is not just a reaction video. This is a long time chat.
This is a chat video with some Marie Kondo involved. But I have this big old hat. It wasn't even that big, but it's this hat, and it has these like ram horns, and it's a black hat. There's little black ears on the side, and that was my winter hat for my last winter semester of college. And I'd wear it around campus.
It was not subtle.
No, like the hat came up like this high. Like it is a big old hat. It was a couple years ago when everyone had like animal hats, like foxes and bears, and they were like little nappy little hats with little dingly bits. Mine had black furry things hanging off there.
Dingly bits, huh?
Dingly bits, yeah. There was a hat where, like, for kids, if you'd squeeze its paws, like, the little ears would flap up and down. Like, there was like a whole moment. So if anyone's watching this, you probably remember that whole weird moment of these flappy hats. Anyway, and then I think you almost ended up with a fox hat or something that year.
Panda.
Then, was it a panda?
Panda.
Pandas. Okay, interesting. You almost ended up with an animal hat, and then you didn't for
It's
one
made out
reason.
of fleece.
Did you get one? I thought you didn't get a hat.
I didn't, but I almost did.
Oh, anyway. But yeah, so I'd wear this hat, and then when it got really cold, I'd be wearing my black pea coat. So I'd be like in this thick black jacket with like darker pants, dark shoes, this big old horned hat, you know? That's the most people I got talking to me, and I'm like, how am I less intimidating wearing a horned hat?
The hat was being the extrovert for you.
You know, like, this one dude even took a picture. He's like, do you mind if I take a picture for this thing I'm doing? And I was like, sure, never knew what it was for. I don't know where that picture ended up. It's somewhere out there, I guess. And I was like, yeah. But, like, I'd be on the bus, and I'd just sit down, and people would just be, like, walking in, and they'd be like, you know? And I was like, what up?
Your reactions were amazing to that hat.
Yeah, no, I remember it snowed here once. Mom and I went to Town Square because the snow had just melted enough to where we could drive there because we were tired of being in the house.
I'm surprised no one threw holy water at you.
No. Probably because they looked too sheepy and not, like, goaty, honestly. But the cops that were driving in a they stopped their big old Suburban, rolled down the window, and they were like, cool hat. And my mom was like, oh my god. Because I went out with my mom wearing this hat in public.
I'm surprised your mom didn't, like, hide her face in shame.
And she was like, she basically was like, don't encourage her because they were just like, cool hat. And I was like, hell yeah. But anyway, so we're introverts, you know, moving wasn't great for me. Going back to the whole point.
Yeah.
And divorced parents, where yours divorced later in your life. Mine divorced when I was very young. I was 2.5, 3. And it wasn't pleasant. It was a very drawn out, till I was 13, divorce. It was very just back and forth. And they both wanted me to live with them.
Ooh.
So it wasn't like, yeah, visitation. No, like, neither of them wanted me to live with the other one. Neither of them was happy with visitation. So it was just very... It was a lot. So I had so many homes that none of them were home to me, really. And I would just always get mad because even...
You were always bouncing back and forth between them.
Yeah, either bouncing between schools because I lived with my mom most of my life, and we moved a lot either because her jobs were... She would move jobs, or once she got remarried, my stepdad would get promotions or whatever, and we'd be bouncing too, so... And my mom says this all the time, and it makes me so angry. And I get her sentiment, but I'm like, that's not how my brain works, and it pisses me off every time she says it. And she said it, like, literally, I think Saturday night again, because we were talking to a family friend, and she goes, you know, when you're married or your family or whatever, like, and you have to move around a lot, it's just really important to be a family, and it doesn't matter where you go as long as you're together.
Because then you'll have some kind of support system.
And I'm like, I get where she's coming from, and I get that, like...
You're missing the point.
Yeah, and then she left Mexico at a very young age, lived alone for a very long time, left a country at a young age, so I get her whole, you know, as long as you have stability, you're good, and I'm like, that wasn't enough for me as a child, though. You know, having, especially my parent thing, maybe if my parents had been less crazy about everything, I'd have more stability.
Maybe.
So,
who knows?
Maybe the friend thing wouldn't be so crazy. I don't know. We'll never know now at this point. But, so going back to the whole greening the house, having a home, having a space, I don't think I've ever felt that I've ever really had a space that was really mine.
See,
I've had things.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm overly attached to my things, because they are my space.
Yeah.
So I can pack up my books and move them around. And as long as I have those books or that toy or whatever, so I have a lot of toys, like straight up. I have a lot of plushes, I have a lot of figurines, I have all kinds of things that everyone's like, oh, that's very childish, and I'm like, all that stuff for me and her show would be sentimental. Yeah. And there'd be very little, if anything, I could really get rid of, just because I grew up as an only child. I grew up not having any family nearby. So all my family was either in Arizona, Nevada, or Mexico. And I always lived in Texas or California. Like, I lived nowhere near anybody. So my friends were the closest thing I had to anybody my age. I never had neighbors. I don't know why. I literally never had neighbor friends. Ever.
Oh.
Yeah. So the neighbor kids either didn't like me, I didn't like them, or they were the wrong age. Like, they were either too old or too young. Like, literally, I never had friends that were neighbors. It was wild. They either babysat me or I babysat them. Literally, that kind of age difference.
Gotcha.
So...
See, and that's the thing that I was kind of also surprised about this show, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about it specifically on the video is I feel like this show can be really cathartic in some ways, but it can also really awaken shadows in a lot of people. Like y'all just heard me before talking about how I started looking at my shadows with this whole thing going down my family line. I mean, you just heard how it got her thinking about some of her shadow stuff. Because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of shadows when it comes to possessions or their home or their childhood, past things. And so I just, not only was the whole show in the way that Marie is, she's so freaking witchy that it's wonderful in such an accessible way, but it's also the fact that it causes you to look at some of your shadows. And for me, it was very cathartic for me to look at those, and I actually found a way for me to start addressing my shadows. For you, you actually just started looking at your shadows, and I don't know what you got from that point going forward, but it has at least got you thinking and acknowledging and, developing insight into those shadows.
For sure, yeah. But yeah, I kind of wanted to also take each one of her points, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Go.
So we started with clothes, where I do have some sentimental stuff in that. And we were talking about this just before we were filming, that, again, my stuff really wasn't my own. Like, my mom would go through, and anything she hadn't seen me wearing would just disappear. Whether I liked it, whether I didn't wear it for certain reasons, whether it was, I only want to wear this for certain occasions. If I didn't wear it, it was gone. I remember one year specifically, she had gotten me these, like, chunky, Sketcher-looking things that you had to, like, lace up and all kinds of stuff. I wore them once, and then I didn't wear them again because I was going to wear them to school because we had gotten them, I think, in the summer in Texas, and they were kind of like short boots, and they were clunky, heavy things, and I'm like, I'm not going to wear this while it's hot. I literally go to look for them for day of school. She goes, oh, well, you didn't wear them, so I gave them away. They were brand new. I had literally worn them in the house once. Like, I hadn't even taken them outside.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, why? And then some of the shirts I did keep from a long time ago literally were, I'm surprised they didn't get lost, honestly, with all the moving and everything else, because that happened a lot, too. Oh, it didn't show up. Sure. But yeah, I have some shirts, and then I kind of want to talk about, like, some things, because she was like, does it spark joy? Do you see yourself wearing this anymore? Does this serve you a real purpose as a clothing item? And what I've been planning for a long time to do with the shirts I have is I want to make a shirt quilt.
Yes!
So, when I saw her show, I was like, yeah, I can see, like, if you had, like, my mom did recently go through my closet, and there were things in there that I didn't give a shit about. Like, I was just like, yeah, take them, you want them, or whatever, because my mom will take some stuff. If it fits her, she'll keep it. Yeah. If it doesn't, she'll just donate it. But, so she took out, like a good bag of stuff that I had literally never worn.
Yeah, your mom can be aggressively utilitarian.
Utilitarian,
though.
A little bit. I mean, this was stuff back when I worked at Ann Taylor, and I had never worn it since then. So,
that was a while ago.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, get rid of it. It's not happening at this point, because a lot of it, because a lot of people do, they're like, when I lose weight, when I fit into it, one of the episodes was this lady who had just had a couple of children, and she was looking to have a third one.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're going to have a third kid, but you're still trying to get to your ideal weight? Well, that's not happening at the same time, lady.
No, but she was also one of the people. She was also one of the people that had the hardest time letting go of things if it could serve any purpose at all. Like, if it had a shred of life left in it, it couldn't get thrown away. It had to be used. It had to be kept. So I think that fed into it a lot too. And honestly, that was probably the episode that poked my shadows the most. And it was the episode where I finally started looking at that in my own family.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my shadow episode.
But yeah, so you know, clothes, like I said, I want to do something with them that's not necessarily wearing them anymore.
Yeah.
But I did want to keep them because, you know, like, a lot of them, like, are things that you can't really get shirts for anymore. They're bands that maybe don't exist. They're one of my favorite shirts that definitely doesn't fit anymore. And I stopped wearing it before it didn't fit because I didn't want it to get any more damaged. Was, growing up, I really liked this anime called Trigun.
Oh.
And it was really popular for a hot minute, but it was before anime was really mainstream. Yeah. So they didn't make a lot of stuff for it, especially in America. Like, you could get it on DVD, you could get, like, a couple collector things, some jewelry, which I actually own. Like, the few pieces that you can own, I own them. You could own posters, just really basic stuff, but that year, Hot Topic had gotten one shirt that was a Trigun shirt. And the design was super cool. Like, I tried finding the artwork for it, like, as a poster or anything. Like, it doesn't exist. Like, as far as the internet's concerned, it never happened.
Dang.
So on the front, it's the two guns kind of crisscrossed, and it says Trigun, but on the back is his wanted poster. Oh. But it's done in patina. Like, it's all browns and tans.
That's cool.
It is the coolest shirt, and I love Vash so much. Like, he is probably, like, my all-time favorite anime character of all time. We were talking about my high school graduation ring in an earlier video where I flipped it. Instead of peace and love, it was love and peace, because in one of the episodes he kind of talked down this bad guy and he goes, "This world is made of love and peace." And he just kind of does this little Japanese peace sign, and he's just like shouting at this guy, and this guy's just like, the heck? But I was just like, that's so cute. So I literally have that inscribed in a metal ring that my parents paid for. So I love this show. So, like, that shirt, never going anywhere. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but it's staying, you know? So, stuff like that. That's the only time I get really attached to, like, a shirt or something. But then, what was the next thing? Papers? I kind of wanted to go section by section.
The next one was books.
Was it books?
Books.
Oh, yeah, okay. So.
Books is something that is a huge sentimental thing for me, and I honestly had the hardest time because I used to have a lot more books than I do now. I used to have over at least 150 books. And I mentioned this on a previous episode, but for a while I had to box up most of my things, including almost all of my books, except for, you know, a very small amount of books, and I had to put them in a storage unit. And that storage unit got broken into and they were stolen. Every single book. And I can tell you right now, when I opened that storage and I went in, I happened to be with my mom because I needed her help to move something. And I froze where I was standing, and I just whispered, "They're gone. They're all gone." And I wasn't talking about it. I lost a lot of other things, but that was the only thing I was talking about. That was the one thing that I cared about in that instance. And I'm not even going to lie to you, I just broke down in tears. I was inconsolable. And I was for days afterwards. I was just inconsolable because growing up I was such an introvert. Those were my best friends.
Yeah, books were an escape.
They were my escape. They were how I dealt with some of the worst times in my life and the darkest times in my life. They were my comfort. They were my escape. They were my friends. And they were gone. So, that I didn't really have to deal with as much because it had already been taken out of my hands.
Yeah.
And that's just something I'm never going to be able to get back unless I repurchase the books. But now I've started buying back some of the books. So I have about 50 books. 45 maybe. But anyway, so now the books that I have very limited space, so I have to be very cautious about my book intake, and I'm constantly buying and selling books. So I will read. If they are important to me, they stay in my collection, and that's how I think of it. They are my collection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very exclusive with my collection now because I'm so squeezed for space. So right now, all of the books that I have can fit onto a custom made bookshelf that my grandfather had made. That's only about yay wide, and it's maybe, I'm gonna say 6.
Yeah, it's pretty tall.
Yeah, it's 6.5 feet tall is my guess, but it's kind of narrow, and it only has 6 or 7 shelves on it, so not a lot of room.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, every time that I move, which I have to move very frequently right now because I'm still a young adult, I am still in an apartment, and I still have to move whenever the rent rises outside of my means. It's just my life. Every time I have to pack up my books to move, I now, every single time, I will sift through them, and whatever doesn't spark joy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was what it was that I was doing when I was doing it, because I've been doing this for a while. But that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was whatever sparked joy I kept, and whatever didn't was sold back to half price.
Yeah, which is a really good thing if you have a used bookstore that does that for you. That's a pretty good way to kind of recycle books, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, you read it, maybe you were like, it was a good one-time read, I'm not going to reread it, or it didn't really click with me, and I just finished it to finish it.
Yeah.
There's been books where I'm just like, okay, getting it through, and then it goes back on the shelf. But yeah, I would,
And, actually, just to give you an idea of how much I have already whittled through my books that I'm so used to doing at this point, about 2 weeks ago, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I'm about to moving back into Mom's. I mentioned this before. I had a little stack of books to take to sell at half price because I whittled through my collection again, just to make sure that only what sparked joy was left. And I only ended up taking five books to be sold. So, like, they're really, I'm like trimming the fat.
Hey man, do what you gotta do.
Like one little layer. Actually, that's what got me the money to buy that little used tarot deck that I
there
showed
you go.
you.
Yeah.
Which I'm in love with it. I'm in love with that tarot deck. Yeah, I know. I see it. We were talking about spiders earlier and how apparently Alex is a spider whisperer, and now we see a little spider.
Keeps crawling back and forth on me.
Like it's taunting you.
Hey, that's not the deal, yo. Out of here. Anyway, so kind of like the shirt quilt that I'm in my head someday will happen. I do have a lot of books.
I aspire to having a library.
So that's my thing. I want an actual book space in my living space when I'm older, when I have a house or whatever. Mm-hmm. So to me, the books I tend to buy I rarely deviate. I normally get something I'm either reading as part of a series or meant something as a child. And do you mind? Little spider just
taunting, staring at you.
Mm-hmm. So either part of a series, like a little paperback, and everyone's like, oh, you should only keep hardbacks or whatever, because I've heard that a lot from other book collectors I've known or Mom had. And those are the books I really need to get through. My mom's friend, back when I was in high school, gave me like 3 just jam-packed boxes of books. That's where I got the Nora Roberts series, the Key series. Remember I told you that I finally fished through it back when we lived together. So, I mean, I'd had these books already for several years, and then I finally was like, yeah, okay, I'll read a couple. So I finally, like, years ago, started going through them after I'd already had them for 5-6 years, though. So those books I probably at some point, needing to go through and donate, because a lot of those I'm just like, oh, what is this,
Yeah.
Not really my speed. But a lot of stuff that I personally buy is either something for, like, my witchy stuff. So, like, I have books that are, like, witchy knowledge, like herbs, tarot, runes, whatever I'm
You
kind
have a lot
studying.
more witchy books than I do. The most metaphysical books that I have are tarot.
Mm-hmm.
I have quite a few a couple of tarot books, and then I actually like going to my library a lot because they often will swap out their tarot books, which I'm incredibly pleased about.
That's pretty neat, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I have that kind of section of books where, things we're going to use for this channel, things that I just want to know more about, yada yada, and those are things that I keep for like a reread purpose, but more of a knowledge purpose to have and kind of resource, like a resource kind of thing. And then I have book series or books that meant something. Like I have like all my Harry Potter books. I have a bunch of like little kid books that I've just had my whole life, and I don't plan on getting rid of because I do want a kids section of my library to be kid friendly. Like either if I have kids, maybe not. I had a lot of these books, especially laid out when I had my niece and nephew visiting when they were little, just in case they wanted to grab something because they were bored or whatever. I wanted that to be available to them, or if they have kids, whatever. If there's kids involved in any capacity, I want them to have something to grab off the shelf and kind of have fun with, and me not have to freak out like, oh, don't grab my signed edition of whatever, you know. But yeah, I want a library space, so I at this moment don't get rid of books, except for, like I said, that one pile that who knows where it is now.
Yeah.
But because I only really collect series or things that they're part of my collection, how you mentioned, like it's my collection. I don't really do a lot of casual reading, I guess. Most of my stuff is I need the next one in the series.
I do a lot more casual reading than she does.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
my taste in reading varies pretty drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll read, oh god, I like reading I actually enjoy reading teen books because I find that teen books are the most insightful and the most evoking. Like, it's the most evocative, like, section for me. It's the section where I find the most books that truly speak to something very deep within me, or speak to a higher part of myself. I very rarely actually find that in adult books. They almost seem more shallow to me. Although, don't take that for saying that every teen book is like that. No. There's a lot of dribble in the teen section. It's just the gems that are there are very bright and shiny and well polished.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
You just gotta sort through all the charcoal and, coal to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
that was 2, right? So clothing and then books,
and then
which
it's paper.
Our stuff is kind of different than other people because I think a lot of from what I saw in those videos, in those episodes for books, was things from school. Like some of these people had stuff left over from college and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can see getting rid of like textbooks or books maybe you had to read for school that you're just like, why do I still own this thing?
Yeah, my family's really bad about hoarding papers and like gift cards, birthday cards, things like that. That was something that I was finally able to let go of with the Kondo thing, which is the next section. The next one is papers.
Mm-hmm. So there's that. That was, like you said, cards, things from school, like notes, homework. Someone on there had kept, like, homeworks and stuff from, we're talking at least 10, 15 years back.
I did. I had homework from when I was in 3rd grade. I know. I don't know why I kept it.
Was there something special on it?
I don't know.
Because I will be honest, my mom somewhere has, like, things I did as a kid that were, like, important. Like, in our kindergarten, we have Star of the Week. And, like, I still have my book from when I was Star of the Week in kindergarten. And I look through and I'm like, okay, that's cute. Because
that's the thing that actually kind of surprises me about when I was in kindergarten. Apparently, I got in trouble all the time because I wouldn't stop talking. And I would go up and talk to anybody and everybody. And I was like, how is that me? Like,
that I was
incredibly, extroverted when I was a
feel
child.
like most kids are extroverted until we're told not to be.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I remember getting in trouble for chit-chatting a lot with, like, friends or whatever, and my teachers always having to make sure I wasn't sitting too close to certain friends because we wouldn't get work done and whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we just get in trouble so often that we're like, oh, tamper down.
Yeah, which actually, I think that's why I'm such an introvert now, is because growing up, for the way that I was raised and where I was at, talking out or, like, being very expressive was very shameful. Like, I got shamed a lot for being talkative to the point where I stopped talking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really sad, thinking back on it now.
Yeah, no, and then I was, I have a lot of friends on my Facebook and other stuff that we all have, like, a lot of the same, like, anxiety and other mental stuff going on. And one of them shared this thing, and I was like, hot damn, like, that, if that's not hitting a nail on the head, I don't know what is, but it was talking about how a lot of kids that were gifted when we were younger had the hardest time transitioning past when we were gifted.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, like for me, I was immediately shit at math in middle school. Like, immediately did not get how the hell pre-algebra worked. And no one sat there and explained it to me. And everyone was, like, my mom was furious because she's like, you'd been straight A's. And then you got to middle school, what happened? And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, it didn't click. Nothing clicked. It was like trying to read, I don't know, Chinese and having never seen it before. It was like that the whole year. Yeah. And math just never got easier. So I was just floundering the rest of the time. And I'm like, you think you're frustrated? I went from being top of all my classes to mid to lower in a lot of my classes just because I stopped getting things. And the point of this post was, you know, those kids tended to be the well-behaved kids. The ones that got tampered down a lot. And then we didn't know what to do with ourselves later. It was like we had harder times adjusting to real life in a sense because how we were got molded so strictly into a classroom setting, and that's not how life works. No. Not even close. So, you know, if any of you have also had this issue, or if any of you have kids, be careful, because that kind of stays with you. Like, and some people, especially people like my mom, they're like, get over it, it already happened. And I'm like, stuff that really happens in your formative years doesn't just go away. Like, straight up, you know?
No.
So, you know, like you said, you were talkative in kindergarten, you were getting in trouble for being loud. Yep. And looking back, we're like, how did that happen, you know? And then...
Like, that's so out of character with who I am now. Like, for me, it is physically painful for me to speak out in a social setting.
I get anxiety thinking about talking to people.
Yeah.
Like,
which is really...
It doesn't even happen. I get anxiety about it happening.
Which, it's actually kind of really interesting because I have all of that I just told you, but then at the same time, I've always been passionate about teaching. And if I get up in front of a classroom of people, adults or children, I immediately become very extroverted. Like, it all comes flowing out of me, and I feed off the energy of the classroom. So it's almost like a night and day switch with me. It's very interesting and kind of scary.
I wonder if that's kind of how it is, because I know that a lot of musicians and comedians are very introverted and very...
Freddie Mercury
have a lot of
like
stuff
that.
going on. So,
he was painfully shy, and then, but once he got out on the stage, which is actually why I love Freddie Mercury, and he's... If I had a pop pantheon, he would be my king. Like, I love Freddie Mercury. He's so significant to me as an individual. I really admire him.
Same.
So, but yeah, he was that way. He was painfully shy, but as soon as he got up onto a stage, he came alive. And he became this whole different person. But yeah.
What were we talking about? Oh, but I have a really quick funny story about getting in trouble in school. And I think that was like the last time I was really ever loud in a class. But my friend and I decided in the middle of doing whatever assignment we were doing in class to just break into the YMCA at our chairs. Yeah, like, that's how crazy I was as a small kid. Like, me and my friend just, like, sat there, like, we just started, like, singing YMCA at the top of our lungs, like, in the middle of class. But yeah, I got a note home for that one. My mom was like, what does this mean? And yeah, I got in trouble. But, you know, again, looking back, getting in so much trouble probably was like, oh, never do any of that ever again. Because I was just so not about getting in trouble to the point where it all just disappeared. But another quick thing, speaking of, you know, all this stuff and being introverted, extroverted, one of my people out in Vegas, I've mentioned him about the money thing. I brought him up in some of his quotes and stuff, and he goes, kids aren't typically shy until you tell them they're shy. So, you know, when your kid's like, you know, if they just woke up from a nap and, you know, you have guests over and you're like, hey, say hi to, you know, the neighbor, or say hi to my sister, or whatever, you know, say hi. That kid kind of, like, shies away from it a little bit, and you're like, oh, you're my shy kid.
And then they become
you internalize it as a child. Like, you don't realize you're doing it till later. So, what this friend out in Vegas was saying, like, kind of, do it in a loving way, obviously, but kind of bolster them a little bit. Be like, no, you're not shy, hun. Like, go say hello, even if it's, like, a quick, like, hi, and the kid runs away. But make them say hello. Like, make them do something, maybe not constantly, because that can also lead to other issues, but not letting your kid do stuff that they're not comfortable with is not good. So, like, we were talking about this the other day, talking on the phone. Comes up a lot for both of us. Like, we don't like doing it.
There needs to be a middle ground. Don't force them all the time, but don't just let them run away. Even if it's just a moment of just one thing.
Or even if, like I had, all my family was in Mexico, so for birthdays and whatever, they'd call the house and they'd say, hey, happy birthday, blah, blah. And I was still kind of shy with my Spanish because I was learning Spanish and English at the same time, so my Spanish was suffering more for it, obviously, because I was in English schools. I wasn't talking Spanish to anyone except for my mom.
The majority
and some of my friends.
time of your life was spent speaking
English. So whenever I was on the phone, I'd feel a little embarrassed because, like, my Spanish was still a little broken up and stuff. And so I'd be like, Mom, can I just, like, say hello? Because they'd want to talk because they're your aunts and they love you and stuff. And I was very close to most of my family because my mom made sure that we went every summer so I would know her family growing up, even if we didn't have them around the corner, you know? So I grew up knowing my whole family and all my cousins. It wasn't like they were total strangers, but I was shy on the phone. And I was learning a language at the same time, so I would just be like, hello, like, yeah. They'd be like, happy birthday, and I'd be like, thank you. And I'd be like, here you go, Mom. Like, I'm done for today. But, you know, like, there's some people that, like, you know, their parents would be like, oh, well, she says hi, you know. So there needs, like you said, to be a middle ground, but you've also got to know that your kid needs some pushing, too, sometimes. Like, you can't just have them... You can't have them be hermits, because it doesn't work out at the end. Anywho.
So, next section? Okay, so next section normally is miscellaneous.
And that a lot of times was kitchen stuff.
Miscellaneous broke down to kitchen, garage, bathroom, all...
kind of where you have knickknacks. Or, like, small items.
Yeah.
Even if they were daily use items.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, I was like, yeah. I've had issues where kitchens were crazy. My dad's kitchen in Vegas is just nuts. Oh my gosh. Where my mom's is like, you left the fork out! Whoa! I'm like...
Oh, it's that way too.
Breathe, woman, it's a fork. Breathe. You know, or bathroom. I've either had enough space or not enough space, but I always have a lot of doodads in my bathroom, because, especially if I have a bathtub, I love Lush, I like bath bombs, I like putting things in the water, I like nice shampoos, I like toothbrushes, and I like a good balance of things on counter, things in drawers. One of the episodes, they were very opposite. That last episode, the couple, they were very opposite in how they organized. One of them was like, I like it being hands reach, and the other one was like, I like it being in a drawer, out of the way. So I'm like, you gotta know who you living with, too.
Yeah.
And make that work. Like, there's gotta be, again, a give and a pull.
Or if you're blessed enough to have double vanity sinks, you get your space, you get your space. And this side is everything out where I can reach it. Everything over here is gone because it's all down the drawer. However, and don't bug each other about their own, each other's space. Just make it work.
Yep, pretty much. Did you have any kind of issues with any of that? Because you're kind of more... I feel you're more utilitarian in those things.
Yes.
Like, more than me, I would say, especially in the bathroom.
In a bathroom, I have only a select... There are only select items that I want out on the counter, and everything else I want down. So the only thing that I like being out on my counter is normally my hairbrush, my toothbrush, toothpaste... Having to think. Maybe a hand lotion.
Soap.
And soap.
Washing hands.
And then my jewelry box. And everything else, I like being out of the way because it's stuff I don't normally use.
Mm-hmm.
And then my previous partner, he was the exact opposite. He has like 3 deodorants of the same kind out on the... Because what if it runs out of one and he needs another? I don't know.
You stash the new ones in a drawer.
That's what I tell him. It was like, use up that one.
That's what I do with like
away,
shampoos. Like if I
break
buy
out the new
like a
one,
new one, it goes up until this one's fully empty, and then because I like buying shampoo not when I'm out of shampoo, but like as I'm running out of shampoo.
It would drive me nuts.
Yeah, that would drive me crazy.
Because we share we would share a sink, and it's just I can't. Like, growing up, my mom was so big into organization and neatness and cleanliness that we would clean every single weekend, without fail, the entire house, top to bottom.
Man.
Everything. Every nook and cranny. And we're talking, my dad was in the military, so we're talking like
clean.
Military
Spick
clean.
and span clean.
He would literally come in after I told him I was done and do the military finger test. Literally, and if he found any dust, I had to do it all over again. So
Damn.
We're talking like I was raised to boot camp standards when it came to cleaning, which is probably why I hate cleaning, come to think of it. But anyway, I did adopt some of that because I don't understand why I like it, but my favorite house space to clean is actually the bathroom. Maybe it's because I like the way that it feels afterwards. So I try and kind of keep that. So that's probably one of the few areas of the house that I'm really big about. I like that to be tidy. I like that to be organized. I don't like a lot of things in there. So I can't stand it when I have
too much out,
or, the sink has gross man things in it, like
hair.
Yeah, like
man things.
From,
I was
like shaving in the sink or fingernail or toenail clippings. Ugh.
Nah, my boyfriend doesn't do that in the sink. He does that outside, like outdoors, and just.
I'm okay with that,
right? And he's just
I'm
like
okay
wherever they land.
Yeah,
I'm like okay.
It's like,
if you ever need any parts for stuff, though, nails are a good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kept telling him, it was like, if I ever wanted to hex or curse you, I've got it right here in the sink.
Yeah, hair and nails.
Like, if you wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. I was like,
who said anything about dying? Hexing and cursing are different than dying, by the way.
Which actually, I do want to do a future video on our
opinion on it.
Opinion of hexing and cursing and things like that, and jinxing and
I can see it.
Yeah, because I think you would actually be surprised by my my opinions, I guess. I don't know. But
yeah, so as far as that, and then I don't really have a kitchen space right now, so
kitchen was never a big thing for me. I just need space for my tea, and that's it.
Yeah. No, and then I have a lot of my stuff packed right now because I was supposed to move out a year ago, and then that sort of happened, but then I moved back for other reasons. And I was really thinking about it, and I was like, I have so much stuff because I'm living in one room. Like, I have kitchen stuff in here. So, like, once I'm in either an apartment or a house or whatever on my own, like, my kitchen won't be really full because I have, like, a set of plates, like 4 forks, 4 knives. I remember, like, my
I like it like that, though.
And I feel like that's how
Less
it really
dishes.
should be. Exactly.
Because we both hate doing dishes. And I know this from personal experience.
Yeah, no,
we lived together, it was horrible.
I definitely want to use a washing machine in my future endeavors of
dishwasher,
dishes.
yeah.
We did that once and it didn't go well, so we just kept hand washing.
And that was a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that was...
Anyway, after that, the last thing is...
It was sentimental.
Sentimental, which I think is the hardest thing for everybody because... And sometimes she has you do things out of order because some people don't have a certain section to go through, and some people, different things are sentimental to them. Like for... like some people it's books. For other people it's memorabilia. For other people it is like there was one episode that was so hard for me to watch because
the grief one.
It was a spouse grieving after the pass of her partner from a terminal illness, and she tried to go out of order and do that earlier, and it was just
Well, she had to, remember? Because she kept freaking out because it was almost like, she's like, it's gonna happen eventually, and it was giving her anxiety.
Yeah.
And so Marie came in, and she goes, I normally wouldn't do this, and she had an aside where she was just talking to the camera, and she goes, I normally wouldn't suggest that, because Marie's point of doing sentimental things at the end was, if you do that anytime before anything else, you might just get stuck in the process, because you're too overwhelmed.
And it's also, by the time that you get to the end, to the sentimental items, the things that are hardest for you to sort through, by that time you've gotten a little
It'll be a little easier.
It'll be a little easier because you've gotten used. You've gotten used to honing your sense of spark of joy, what is truly important for you to keep, and what isn't. So, like that makes complete sense to me.
Like, on that episode, she had said on the aside, like, I normally wouldn't do this, but she realized it was not helping this lady to not do that sooner, because she was like, this is really why I need to clean this space. Because
that was really her whole reason for doing it to begin with.
The big thing was that the closet was still full of his clothes.
So every day she was having to go and look at it, and it was like he was like a reminder that he was gone.
Yeah.
And that's so heartbreaking for me to imagine.
Ugh, I'm getting a little choked up.
I am. So anyway.
Be gone, emotions.
Right. So I would highly recommend that you watch this series. It was very interesting, not only to see Marie and all of her really subtle witchiness.
Yeah. A little quick thing though. So 2 things before, because I know we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
But 2 things. So we had mentioned clothes and space and all this stuff, and I had mentioned it to my mom because I think she should watch it, because...
Oh Lord, she'd want to come in here.
Well, no, hold on. Because she has a lot of clothes. I don't know if you've ever seen her closet.
No.
She has a spring, summer, fall, winter, and every change of seasons in Texas, she has so many clothing that I don't even know where she bought this hook. She has one of those hooks from, like, department stores where they have to
the one to get clothes from like the story up.
She has one of those official, like, it's an actual clothing hook. It's not like a weird hook device. No, it's a clothing hook. I don't know if she bought one, stole one. I don't know where it came from. Literally, she takes out all her clothes, makes a mountain on the bed, swaps it, and then just puts it all back. And
that's impressive.
Yeah, it takes her like a full week, like, to move all this stuff. Yeah, no, it's she has like, and she always waits till Dad's out of town, because she can only have that space on the bed basically, or all ends up on the floor if Dad's there, because it does not fit. And I was like, she needs to watch this because she has too many clothes. And no, what I told her, I was like, because I was like, yeah, I look at all my stuff and I was like, God, I have so much stuff, but I'm like, I have so much stuff because I have so little space. Even if I had an apartment, even when I had the apartment, I think I fit better, because my room was, I could move stuff and shelf stuff and closet stuff, and, you know, even though we
still didn't have a floor, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Even though we shared a kitchen, and it was messy, like, when we had stuff put away, we didn't take up the whole kitchen.
No.
Like, we both had our one little set of dishes, cups, mugs, whatever. We didn't have, one of the episodes, they had, like, 29 different mugs between the 2 people. And I'm like, that's a lot. Like, that at that point, to me, I would look at myself and be like, why do I need 30 mugs, you know? But I was really looking at it, and I'm like, if you don't fit in your space, one of 2 things has got to happen. You got to buy bigger space, and can you do that? Do you have the money to do that? Or 2, you need to get rid of something. You know? I feel like, again, this looks like this because I don't have space, woman!
What did you just say? If you can't buy space,
get rid of stuff. I'm still in the process of buying space. I haven't gotten to that set of my life. Yeah, giving me that dirty eye. But I was really looking at this closet because my mom is downsizing. She already has a smaller house elsewhere. And her plan is to use the guest room as a closet. Like, the whole room. Not the guest room closet.
She ain't gonna have a guest.
But I'm like,
why not have her own?
The point is, she's already, like, inviting people out there. And I'm like, you can't use a whole room and then
I think we all have somebody
space.
that we would like to recommend this to.
I think everybody needs to watch this, honestly.
Yeah.
You know,
like, it actually got me to get up and do something.
Like,
so it
gave me good organizing ideas. I just literally, all my stuff is in boxes.
You could at least go through your clothes.
Which, like I said, I've done most of that. Like, everything else is either part of the quilt or I'm trying to figure out what to do with it.
Gotcha.
So, you know, but that part, because she was like, I really love my clothes, because my mom is really into clothing and purses, and she's really into fashion stuff. And I was really looking at her, and I'm like, but you don't wear a lot of it. Like, she even complains to me, like, I haven't worn this in years. Like, she'll sit there and complain.
That's so strange from the way that your mom does everything else.
And I'm like
you were saying with your clothes, if you didn't use it.
Yeah, and that also just killed me,
Yeah, I got you.
But, stuff like that. And I'm like, if your clothes don't fit in your closet, you gotta figure something out. Like, what I feel like the stuff I collect fits better, like, because, say I didn't have a library space, I could still have books out in the living room. I could have books in shelves in the hallway. Like, books are something you can kind of disperse a bit better. Like, you can't have shirts hanging in your kitchen, I mean, you could, but that looks a little weird.
It reminds me of that book, it's a little, like, it's like a trilogy or a 4-part series, but it's like the, I don't remember what, Inkspell?
Oh, I never read those.
Inkheart, I think is the first one. And she was talking about how they loved books so much that there were literally stacks of books in every room. And, like, there was a stack of book in the bathroom. And, like, I remember reading that when I was younger, and I was like,
this doesn't sound bad.
That would be me. That would be me. That would be me. Yeah.
Right. So and then,
like, I get your point with that, because they kind of, like,
you can disperse things like that. And then I feel like if you're really in a nerdy house, you can have action figures wherever the heck you want them.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of my stuff I could disperse if I didn't necessarily have a room for it. My ideal room, actually, is basically what we call here a media room, or whatever, like what I was talking to you earlier.
Yeah.
And having, like, all my figures and pops, like, on one wall. Having all my books and stuff, like, go around. And then...
It's like an entertainment space.
And then all the DVDs in, like, a spot by the TV. So, like, most of this room would be in just one room.
There would be a good-sized room.
And then my boyfriend also happens to collect Hot Wheels. And so on that would also have its space, Like, I would want that room to be a mush of our nerdiness.
I know, but you both are collectors.
He doesn't collect as much as me, thank God.
I know, but he still has the spirit and nature of a collector. And that would drive me nuts. I can't handle a collector to that degree, just because I already get so stressed out when I feel like I don't have space. That I wouldn't be able to cope, I don't think. Especially since collectors normally have a very hard time, kind of like with my books, where I siphon through to where only the essential, only the most important stay. I feel like sometimes that can be very hard for a collector to do.
Yeah. And then...
because everything has something that makes it important.
And I think that's like my one semi-saving grace, is that even though I have, like, a bajillion pops, I don't collect pops just to collect pops. Because there are people that do that. They're just like, oh, that's a new pop, I gotta have it.
Yep.
Where I'm like, oh, that's, like, my favorite character from my favorite movie. And even then, we just watched a movie last night, and I realized I ended up not buying a single pop from that collection, but I remember being so excited for that collection. So things get away from me, and, like, looking back, I'm like, yeah, if I ever found it for, like, cheap or something, I might get one or two, but I'm not like, shit, I forgot, So, like, I think I might have, like, 5 pops that I got from services and stuff that aren't, like, die hard. Like, if I really had to get rid of a couple pops, I could get rid of those. And then I have one pop that I actually bought for someone, but then we had a falling out and I still have it.
Oh, dang.
So I could, in theory, just give it to them and be like, look, I still don't like you, but here you go. So I have pops that I have not for good reasons, but 99% of my pops are from a movie or a book or a show that I watched or enjoyed. So...
that still leaves a pretty big
it
collection.
does, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
At least, like, boyfriend might collect all the Mustangs simply because they're Mustangs. How many are those? Like, that's a ton of Mustangs. Or, like, my Kodobakiyas. Tons of those. I missed out on the Loki one, and I'm still furious that I did, but, again, I don't need all of them, because some of the characters I don't give a rat's ass about. But there's some people that are like, oh, I gotta have it. It's a sexy woman. It needs to go on my shelf. So that is my one saving grace as being a collector is I don't collect to collect. I collect because even then, I collect because it already meant something to me. I don't get it and then it means something to me. I got it because it meant something to me. My one saving grace.
That also means you can't get rid of anything, though.
Yeah, so I didn't say it was a great saving grace. I just said it was a saving grace. But yeah, this is already a super long video.
Yeah, it's probably going to come out in parts.
Yeah, we could probably swing that.
But, so just wrapping up, this was a really great series. It was very eye-opening for me personally, just because not only did I enjoy watching Marie and her witchiness, but also the fact that it caused me to look at shadow. Like, my own personal shadow, my familial shadow. It obviously made you start looking at your shadows.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also, I was able to incorporate some of it into my own life, and I benefited from it. I had a really big feeling of catharsis in significant parts of it. So I would highly recommend this series for everyone to watch. Because I think no matter who you are, I think you can get something out of it. Even if it's only, I watched this, it's amazing, it reminds me of my friend whoever, I'm going to recommend it to them.
Mm-hmm, yeah, even if it's to impart something you learned to somebody else.
So I hope that this wasn't too long. I hope that we didn't bore you. I hope that you got something significant out of it. And hopefully you'll keep watching us even though we are windbags.
Blustery old windbag! Oh man,
Get
pretty
off
much.
my lawn, you kids.
Oh god. We're not that old yet, woman. Not yet.
But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed and have a good day, okay?
Yep.
Alright.
Toodaloo.
Bye.